Inside a small, dusty diner on the outskirts of a Texas town, the ceiling fan spun lazily, its creaky blades doing little to stir the heavy, muggy heat that had settled over the room. The smell of sizzling grease filled the air, mixing with the low hum of a country song crackling through ancient speakers. At the counter sat Jack, stone, Hawke, a 72-year-old man whose broad shoulders and hard gaze could intimidate anyone. Despite his age, the muscles in his arms still rippled beneath his faded military t-shirt, a tribute to the Army Rangers, the elite force he had once belonged to. Tattoos, most of them now faded by time, covered his arms, but one remained clear and sharp, a dagger piercing through a cracked skull. Surrounded by thorns, it gleamed in the sunlight as he lifted his glass of iced tea, the ice cubes clinking softly in the glass. Across the diner, a young sailor, fresh-faced and in his Navy uniform, froze mid-bite, his burger hanging forgotten between his fingers. His eyes were fixed on Jack's tattoo. It couldn't be that mark. It couldn't be him. The room, once filled with the ordinary sounds of eating and chatting, suddenly felt silent. The air thickened with anticipation as the sailor's gaze never left Jack. His breath short and heavy. Jack felt it, even before he saw who it belonged to, a stare that cut through him. Heavy with questions, the young sailor hesitated before standing up, walking slowly toward Jack. His uniform was sharp, his posture disciplined, a man trained for respect. As he came closer, his voice broke the quiet, barely more than a whisper, but Jack could hear every word. "Sir, were you part of Ghost Echo?" The words hit Jack like a fist, but he masked his surprise. The table beneath his hand rattled as he set his glass down, the old wood groaning under the weight of the question. That name, Ghost Echo, only existed in classified files. It was a mission so secret, even high-ranking officers weren't supposed to know about it. Jack's chest tightened, his heart skipping a beat as he glanced at the sailor. He had never heard that name spoken aloud outside the mission. "Never heard of it," Jack muttered, his voice rough, a little too quick. But the sailor didn't back down. He reached into his pocket, his hands steady, and pulled out a small, worn photo. He unfolded it, revealing a younger version of himself, no older than 10, standing next to an older Filipino man. The two were smiling, but the older man's eyes were tired, etched with stories Jack knew all too well. "This is my grandfather," the sailor said, his voice thick with emotion. "Leo Ramirez. He was your interpreter. He told me stories about you, about the time you saved 17 men before command left you all to die." Jack's breath caught. The man in the photo, Leo, was no stranger. Jack had seen him many times. Leo was the one who stayed when everyone else left. He was the one who carried the wounded on his back when the situation seemed hopeless. The man who never gave up. Jack's hand tightened around the ice in his glass, the crunch of the cubes filling the tense silence between them. He was about to speak when the words caught in his throat. All those memories flooded back, the 72 hours they had spent holding that ridge. Without ammunition, without communications, and Leo, who never stopped fighting, even when the fever finally took him. The air in the diner was still, the sound of clinking forks, sizzling grills, and idle chatter all but gone. The fry cook, the waitress, even the cashier, they all stood still, silent witnesses to this moment. "Your grandfather," Jack began, his voice low and hoarse. "He carried the wounded until the fever took him. He didn't stop, not once." The sailor, Leo Ramirez, stood frozen, his mouth opening but no words coming out. His eyes were wide, filled with disbelief. Then, with a sharp movement, he snapped to attention and saluted Jack. It wasn't just any salute. It was a salute that cut through the air, sharp and deliberate, his hand trembling as it held firm. Jack, feeling the weight of the years on his shoulders, slowly returned the salute. The years had made him slower, but there was still strength in the motion, as the old tattoo on his arm shimmered in the dim light. Leo lowered his hand, his voice shaky as he spoke the words Jack would never forget. "Master Sergeant Hawke, I brought something." He reached into his duffel bag and pulled out a small wooden box. It was polished, but worn, just like everything in Jack's life. He opened it carefully, revealing old notes, names, and coordinates. Everything needed to get the Ghost Echo team officially recognized. Jack's hands were steady now as he took the box, his fingers brushing over the fragile documents inside. For the first time in years, the years of battles, of lost comrades, and of time wasted, Jack felt like the weight of his past might finally be lifted. As the fan above them creaked in the humid air, Jack didn't notice the heat. He was too focused on the legacy of those long-forgotten heroes, and the man who had never been forgotten by those who mattered most.